Good morning. We are about to kick off the first plenary of day 2. So may I please request everyone to start settling down. My name is Debanjan Chakraborty. I head British Council's English Language Policy Research and Publications work in India, and I'll be MC for this morning session. Before I invite the plenary speaker, Osama Manzar, and my colleague Anna Searle on stage, Anna will be chairing the session that Osama will deliver. May I please remind everyone that like many sessions in this conference, this is also being webcast live. So just to say hello to all our webcast viewers, please can you turn towards the camera nearest you and wave? Yeah? There's a camera near you. Can you wave at the cameras, please? Good morning, world. It's morning here in India. We had a really lively day yesterday, a great rocking start to the conference, Multilingualism and Development. Some of us, my role is also as one of the main managers, organizers of this conference. I had a lot more hair when I started 9 months ago on this. Howell Coleman, who is the academic lead for the conference, was a much younger man. Similar things could be said of colleagues like Ruma Roy, Radhika Sungar, Vernon D'Souza, Michael Connolly, Amy Lightfoot, who have really slogged very hard to get this conference to you and all of you here in this lovely setting at the Lalit Hotel in New Delhi. The conference has had amazing reach and impact through Twitter and social media. The agency which is helping us compile the stats has sent in the numbers. There's so many zeros after them, I can't even remember how many zeros are there. So may I please encourage those of you on Facebook and Twitter to keep on posting about the conference. The hashtag is #LangDev2015 for Twitter. Without further ado, may I invite my colleague Anna Searle, Director of English Language, British Council, to introduce the plenary speaker and take on from here. Welcome, Anna.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2. I don't know if any of you were feeling cold yesterday in the room. So I think we were warmed up very well from the plenary yesterday morning. And I'm very confident that today our plenary speaker will do the same thing. He will kick off with a very interesting and informative start to the day. Now, Osama Manzar, you had introduced you yesterday, but I think we will give a brief introduction again. So Osama is the founder, director of the Digital Empowerment Foundation India. He is a social entrepreneur, author, speaker, editor, columnist, and new media specialist, and obviously very passionate about digital media and the impact it can make. He's going to be talking to us for about 20 minutes about digital media and the internet, threats or opportunities for local languages, culture, and knowledge. And I think we'll build very much on the discussions that already started yesterday, which were bringing in digital media as a channel, the opportunities, the possible threats that this is going to bring. So I will now hand over to Osama to warm us up nicely this morning with 20 minutes, which will be followed by around 20 minutes Q&A. So have your questions ready. Thank you very much, Osama.
I didn't know we had to start with yoga. Should we warm up by you doing yoga in the morning? Okay, so since I haven't made the presentation, I will keep making and showing to you, live and interactive. Okay, this light has to be dimmed. This one a little bit. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. So, I really meant by making a presentation with you because I was almost making in the car when I was coming in by introducing some of the slides. I would like to start with this slide by showing to you, I was in Italy last week and I found this image in a church which has got world's all the language alphabets in the hand, and it is like this. And it is an artwork which was on display in one of the churches, like an art gallery, and it has got all the alphabets of the world. You can see easily lots of Hindi letters and Urdu and Arabic, recognizable and all that. So just to start with that one, to introduce that there are lots of people who care for language, to save it, and how digital media and internet can play a role. Again, like yesterday, I would like to say that I am not expert on language. I have no idea. I took 8 years to graduate, so I am equally bad on academics and education per se. But my journey started of my life. My mother tongue is Bhojpuri and was Bhojpuri. She still speaks to me in Bhojpuri. My father tongue was Urdu. I don't know why everybody says mother tongue all the time, because I found my father speaking to me all the time Urdu and my mother all the time Bhojpuri. And there is always two tongue many a times. I grew up in a school where we had to go through Urdu, Hindi, Persian, Arabic, English, all compulsory. Because it was by my father and his friends for a minority school, and he said that we need to know all the languages. Up to 9th grade, I studied all these languages, but I cannot speak. I can speak Arabic without knowing what I'm speaking, and I can understanding. I can as well read Arabic and Persian. Urdu, of course, at one point of time, I remembered the entire dictionary, and I thought that I should become a Urdu writer, but ended up being an English writer as a journalist. And I would blame it to the economy of the language. How languages are more flourishing in terms of economy and in terms of jobs and skills and all that. So that is another aspect that we also understand, that why some languages do not flourish and why some of the languages are flourishing, and people are adopting those languages, not because those languages may be the best languages of the world, but that's the language of jobs, money, economy, power, anything, or communication to international audience. So that is also very, very important, that are we going to become a monolingual world as far as the business and economy and job is concerned? And for the rest of the languages, will that become heritage language? Will that be treated as that always, somebody is working to preserve them? So, that was a little introduction. But, this is a typical phase of most of the dying languages in the country. It looks poor, it looks deprived, it looks wanting, it looks miserable, I was searching the Google last night, and I got 196 endangered languages only in India. 196, all listed. And some of them are extremely, less number of people speaking. And it was revealing to me, and I don't know, I felt extremely bad that I didn't even know that there are so many languages endangered and we are not doing anything, and there are possibility of having them empowered, having them come up and all that. And most of these languages are spoken in rural India, in rural parts of them. When we say rural, it's a loaded statement. When it is rural, it is disempowered, it is remote, it is not reached, it is information deprived, it is not known to us, it does not matter to economy, it does not matter to power. It just throws away many aspects of, how we treat language and the speaker of the language. And the character of all these languages are they're still very oral, you know. They are spoken orally and they do not have a space in script or in the power game. And incidentally, if you go further, you see that we have lots of oral media available. So if you have oral as a mass media and speaker, then we also have many medium which is oral and not certainly written. I mean, radio, cinema, television, computers. Computers we always call as the third screen. The first screen is cinema, the second screen is television, the third screen is computer, the fourth screen is mobile. And then gradually, all these oral media started becoming interactive. You know, earlier the oral media was interactive only when you talk person to person in face of each other. But now, without facing each other, through the use of media, they started becoming, you know, interactive. So, you know, we need to understand that how language, because I see language only as a medium, you know, because you converse in a certain language to convey a message to somebody. It's a medium. And then gradually written as a medium. And now similarly, digital is also becoming as a medium. So are we treating this medium to merge with the language that you are speaking and using this medium to do something which is, you know, important in the economy of life? And if you look at the oral society and the oral medium available to the country like India, you will see these statistics available to you. If let's say if you are speaking oral language and we are only strictly oral and not really written, then these are the medium that is available to you and their reach, you know. Mobile, now today's figure is 901 million, which is already close to 1 billion. And together with landline, it becomes 1 billion. And it is available to the people to converse in the language that they need. They don't need to become literate in some other language to converse. You know, use a phone and then start conversing to the other side of the world or to the other side of the house or whatever. TV, which may not be interactive, but good reach. Radio, which is supposed to be oral and the most traditional medium, however, has not as much a reach as mobile is. And then information kiosk, and then community radio, which is another way of reaching to the community, because then you can have a license to run a community radio to the remote areas and to by the NGOs and all that. And then languages available, if you just put all these medium available to you, and then the languages that are spoken and written, you have 30 spoken by more than millions in India, and then 120 languages, which is spoken just about 10,000 plus number of people, and then 196 languages, which is endangered in India. So I think by the time we leave this space, we should think of these 196 and who are they and what we can do is something that we can take task with us. Come to digital technologies. I searched Google and found out about 96 languages Google is supporting. So that is, digital media is certainly hopping to have more and more and more and more languages incorporated to work with the digital technology, which is a very good sign. Facebook started with just English, and now you can imagine, just because everybody is having mobile, Facebook wants to reach mobile, and therefore the speaker on the mobile, they are also expanding their languages because they want to grab their attention. They want them to interact with their own spoken language or the language. And of course, Roman is helping a lot by not losing your language and still using somebody else's fonts and alphabets and writing what you want to write, which is again not bad in terms of communication. Incidentally, I read a short editorial that comes on Mint, where I weekly write my column also. It said, radical shift. Oxford Dictionary has included, sign language as a part of the dictionary. which is like going back to holographic era when the sign languages used to be used. Now it's part of our dictionary, which is a very, very big radical shift, almost like sensational, that it is now part of the dictionary of the language of the masses all over the world. And therefore, I would like to share some of the experiences that we have in rural India, where people we were working with 150 locations in 23 states and 60 districts, how they are, without really learning English, using on digital tools, and in their own languages they are working. You know, we have graphic designers not knowing English, 2 grade pass, in villages they are using designing tools and selling products online. You know, I have no idea how to express this into which category of language or dying or adopting or so this is digital tool which goes beyond a language, and it has its own language of expression, you know. All this is designed and online and sold it. These are all newsletters made by the village people on the computer, and when they don't know how to type in Hindi and English, they just write and scan it and then make a PDF and start sharing it, which is using, not losing out your own medium, language, and still using digital medium to share it. You can see English, you can see Hindi, you can see handwritten, and these are all the people who are making it. This lady on the bottom on the left, she has made the local language-based mobile on the blackboard to say what is the shape and size and the language of mobile, and she is teaching people how you can use it. So, you know, so all these beautiful things that is happening already with the tools, I mean, they are not really waiting that the computer should work in whole language, or for that matter, Bhojpuri language, or for that matter, any other language. It is being treated as its own, as the medium as it is, and then we are expressing in our own language. And sometimes, if they don't know how to read and write and express pictorially, they record and send it, you know, which is again oral. So digital medium allows you to do that. And photography, you know, they are just taking pictures. They write on a piece of paper, they take pictures, convert into PDF, send it, and everybody is reading it. This lady, which is 65-year-old, never studied. She is a village councillor, started learning computers at the age of 65, and now she manages computers at the back of her hand. And she still cannot write English properly or any other international language properly, but she is communicating and she is using this medium to do her official job and everything. And she lives in Tilonia, is a village in Rajasthan in Ajmer district. Similarly, this guy is a 2 grade pass, and he is a radio engineer. He rips apart all the radios, and he converted this wireless mic into a transmitter, and he broadcasts 15 kilometers a radio transmission. And of course illegal, according to the law, but he broadcasted for 5 years all the pirated CDs and the cassettes and all the local language songs and all that for 5 years merrily. By the time the law came to him and said that shut down, and by then he had got his cake and eaten it too, and now he runs a full-fledged computers center supported by our organization. But he knows how to make a FM radio transmission in less than 100 rupees using the parts of wireless mic. Because wireless mic is when I'm speaking here, he figured out that without wire, how come the voice is reaching somewhere else? And he opened it and figured out and gradually started increasing the intensity from 100 meter to 200 meter to 500 meter to 1 kilometer to 15 kilometers. And his antenna is always in a bamboo pole, you know, because he cannot afford to buy a real metal pole. So he there are technologies which is helping such people who cannot. These women has full-fledged made a community radio studio on their own using egg trays as an acoustic system and broadcasting in their own language about 10 to 15 kilometers. This is in the Kutch area in Gujarat. And then on the next one, here they are recording the voices of violence against women, and then they are broadcasting through SMS how to curb the violence against women and reporting to the police. So mobile and oral media here, mobile is a oral media and textual media, and then recording and voice recording all mixed together. They are overcoming violence against women collectively. This lady who is a weaver, as I showed you in the beginning, the family members are using graphic designing to transform from hand-based design to the computer-based design and going online. This is Gandhi Language website, where they have invented a font of themselves, and they've created a website. And here, as you can see, you can call and record your message if you don't know how to read and write in the Gandhi language, and your messages will be displayed and done. And you must have heard of voice web, Internet of the voices, where you can create voice websites and all that. So, these things are gradually happening and using. So what are we learning? What is the language cycle? Oral is natural, audio is natural, visual is natural, sign is acquired, written is acquired, pictorial is acquired. So all this is mixing up together, and then the tools that we have available for oral media now is a dime a dozen. You can just use those digital media collectively in so many ways that you can you don't have to really lose out your language. The technology allows you to be used as a medium, from oral media, radio, YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp. I mean, WhatsApp has become one of the most beautiful tool to be in your own language, create your own community of hundreds of people, and communicate. And I'm sure gradually all these medium are going to grow in such a way that you can do everything in terms of literature and conveying the message in a manner of not only the daily business and work, but also in terms of the depth of the language. So, medium has its own limitation. Of course, written versus oral, we have to think how written has become a secluded few people's language, and it has become very powerful. So it has to unshackle itself from the written to go to oral to become more democratic, more global, more level playing. The reason why I'm coming back again and again with the oral medium and technology which allows oral medium is because it is much more democratic. Everybody gets equal voice. And in written really avoids everybody who may be knowledgeable but may not be written, and therefore they are discarded as illiterate and uneducated. I mean, if you can't read and write, that doesn't mean that you don't have knowledge, and that's a big issue with knowledge gathering or aggregation of knowledge. And therefore oral is extremely important because it naturally makes people qualified, educated, and learned, and with wisdoms. So, these are the last couple of slides. What we are seeing is that the future of information consumption and dissemination is going to be maybe rural dwellers and all those people economically disempowered, but all the tools that is down at the bottom is going to be your medium of future and present, which is going to empower all the languages to become equal to each other. That's all. Thank you very much. So was I late?
I think that was absolutely inspiring. It's fascinating. The examples of where the entrepreneurial inquisitive mind can break through the ability to read or write, and actually the positioning of where reading and writing is not the key thing. Language can be shared. It goes to the very heart, I think, of what we're discussing over these few days around language and development. I picked up lots of examples. You can't read or write doesn't mean you don't have knowledge, and I think Osama very clearly showed how that knowledge can be shared and used, and the role within an oral society like India of the digital media. He said digital tools go beyond language, and beautiful things are happening already. And I think he very much demonstrated that case. So what we'll do now is we've got around 20 minutes for questions. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Hopefully we have a couple of roving microphones and a microphone on the table. So, questions?
Yeah, the backbenchers are always good people.
Hi, I'm Shivani. There's a lot of optimism, of course, after hearing your talk. I come from Himachal Pradesh, and the language that I speak at home, Kangri, that is one of the endangered languages, the 196 endangered languages that you talked about. Now, while I see hope in the fact that it's an oral language, we don't have a script, it is not a medium of instructions in any school in Himachal Pradesh. With WhatsApp, Facebook, yes, people are texting in it a little more, and yet that somehow doesn't address the power question. You know, some people will text me now in Kangri because they can, but the fact is they still don't value it, they still don't want their children to learn it, lest they get confused between Hindi and Kangri. So I really wonder, unless some institutionalized, mechanisms and pushes happen, will this optimism go as far as we hope it should? Thank you.
So, is that a statement, or do you want me to respond?
It would be nice if you could respond also.
Okay, so as I told you, languages have been suffering because of the power game and economic game. So it is very, very clear. And it is also very clear at a policy level, at a governance level, at a country's medium of instruction level, a very small number of languages is very difficult to put it into the legislation and become a power of instruction. But having said that, these mediums actually empower you to become much more vocal, much more agile and proactive, to start sharing information so that you have more power through the use of technology and the medium. And therefore, your voices are heard more, and not necessarily wait for policy to save it, rather than crowdsource it to save it. You know, the more crowd using technology and becoming more and more powerful. I mean, I would be very happy to help to have a dedicated website for your language, to have lots of content being shared, so it already goes a step further, and maybe we can take it forward from there.
And I think the other things that you shared, Osama, around the forums and the communities that are already there and sharing and translating languages so that they're uploaded and things are being shared, that's happening so much more than I realized. And I think exactly as you say, it's optimistic, it's inspiring, and I think the question is not just policy, as you say. Yeah. More questions from the floor.
Hello, Kirk Person, SIL International, a very inspiring presentation. My question is, you know, a few years ago, everyone was talking about the $100 laptop and how that was the magic bullet for so many things. How do you see what you're doing now as being different from that? I mean, it seems to me the $100 laptop has sort of disappeared from the screen now. Do you think what you're doing now will be more sustainable, and what will it take to really keep this digital revolution going in these smaller languages?
Yeah, so to tell you the fact that, you know, $100 laptop or a computer is also a kind of cultural treatment to find a cheaper solution for the poor people to access technology. You know, actually, poor people and the people who cannot read and write need much more powerful computers and laptops than we do, because they are dependent on audio, video, and audio-visual medium, which is rich media. and rich media requires more powerful machines. So having said that, they need much more powerful machines than what we need. We can manage to have many, many more ways to express and consume content. So $100 will happen only if the masses are there to buy and buy. You know, mobiles are happening already. You know, mobile you can get in less than $100, you know, much, much less than $100. And since mobile is doing everything that the computer was supposed to do, I don't even know that whether we are in the right direction to think of still having a laptop in $100, because our mobiles are laptops now, the palm tops or the finger tops. Which is doing everything that the laptop was supposed to do. So we are pretty much there to do what we needed laptop for, doing with mobile, which is much cheaper than $100.
And Osama, how would that balance with the fact that, because I think you're right, the mobile certainly in places like India seems to have bypassed the need for the laptop largely, but how would that meet the more complexity of programs that you said is needed to run, they need to run to help people who don't necessarily, who need to rely on the oral tradition?
So oral tradition is another reason why mobile penetration is so high. You know, it doesn't require you to be written or in the language of the educated people, literate, or for that matter educated, and therefore culturally it is really imbibing and getting and penetrating to those people. And then we are realizing that mobile, since has reached to the youth, which maybe not be going to the school, why not we work on educational content and other content? So it is actually the device is attracting more and more content players, how to reach to them, which is a good sign, you know, which is also a good sign for the languages. Then we will have more and more languages coming up and using digital media to feed the content from the content to those people who speak local language. You know, like Mark Zuckerberg started speaking Chinese when he went to China, you know. Of course, he needs that entire audience to start using Facebook.
And I think that the figures that you gave us as well, the numbers using mobile show that the medium is there and the youth are using it. More questions?
Can you raise your hand, please? I can't see.
We have a question over here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello. How does one get space for a small language in the internet?
Sorry, could you repeat that? It wasn't very clear.
How does one get space in the internet for a small language?
How do I don't know if I understood right. I mean, the space means you want hosting or a website or how do we do that? That's not difficult. If I don't know the language or font of the same language, I will build a website with voice content, you know, or a video content by recording those voices. But it can get a space. That is not a problem. But then it will be a website more like a YouTube kind of website or a audiovisual kind of website if the technology cannot use the font or the language that is of the little spoken language.
And I think again the thing that you highlighted is very interesting is the way in which once the language is starting to be shared, the more people who become involved in that. So the space will almost create itself, forums, communities.
Because if you see most of the content platform today is self-generating and crowd-generating. I mean, Facebook is actually a platform. The content is created by the masses. Same with YouTube. Same with, if you search Google, 80% of the content that you are getting is aggregated, you know. So it's a mass production that is happening. The content is not being produced for masses, but the masses are producing the content. And that's the way, there is a hope for the endangered languages and the languages which is spoken by less number of people or economically disempowered languages.
which in a way goes back to the very first question and the very first point about this is something that perpetuates itself. The interest in the languages by the community or by other communities will help to keep those languages alive.
Absolutely, and another reason, just to add value, radio was always there, but it was not increasing in terms of creating more content because it was one production house for content and not all the other listeners. But now when I'm listening a certain language, I'm also getting excited to produce content, and therefore I'm adding to the language pool or the content pool, and that's the advantage with the modern technology, that it allows everybody to produce content.
And I think we did see some fantastic examples of how that's happening, but also what I hear is the excitement of how it's happening, both the excitement it generates for Osama, but also for everybody else in terms of being able to be involved in the perpetuation and the continuation. We had a question at the back.
Good morning. I have a question regarding English. I like your combination of digital and oral. Now, my concern is how can English be digital, oral and global? Because when we speak in English, we have recognized that Singaporean English and Indian English and African English, name it whatever you want, and the danger what I see in making it oral and digital is if we do not have a standardized oral English, can we understand each other? What's your take on that?
So should I go back to say that I'm not a language expert, so I skipped this question. But having said that, I think when you are talking this, you're talking about the script as an English, but language as different. Am I right? And therefore oral becomes very, very important. And therefore, when it becomes to oral, then obviously digital tools and the technology and the medium becomes very, very important. Because when I go to Nagaland, I see the entire newspaper written in English fonts and English script, and I can't understand a bit because it's actually a local, some local language who is using English script. Or for that matter, I'm writing, मैं तुमसे प्यार करता हूँ in Hindi, actually using Roman language. So anybody who is reading, the Englishman who is reading, they don't know what this guy really loves me or not,
Yes, good morning. My name is Anuradha. I also appreciate very much this huge optimism and these fantastic possibilities, but once again, the fact that there are so many new possibilities for oral expression and the use of these tools for different kinds of empowerment doesn't take away the fact that going back to the written domain, Indian languages are suffering because of the pressure of English, and yesterday we listened to several speakers talking about the shift, massive shifts from studying in Indian languages, media to the English medium schools, etc. How is this going to be arrested by the digital tools?
Well, yesterday, in a very short 1 minute, I had said that there is a culture of language and the language of culture, So I don't know, we are actually caught because of economic reason, because of various government policies and international trade or whatever. Actually, we are going through a culture of, language of culture. And the culture is that adopt economically powerful languages, which gives you a job, which gives you everything, and therefore the policies are meant like that. I mean, we feel proud to make our children speak English, not because English may be the best language and Hindi is not or Bhojpuri is not, because when they speak English, they think they can get a better job, because job is the most important thing when you are born and brought up in India, it's an economic requirement. So, there is no easy answer to this. I think again the answer to this is that the more and more languages are spoken using the tools and the medium, the more popular it becomes, and therefore more culturally it becomes valuable, There will always be one language above the other language in terms of the number of people, number of skills that it can give you, number of jobs it can give you. Having said that, that is not really a threat. The threat is that it is dying. And therefore, with each death of a language, a culture dies, a history dies, and the heritage dies. That's the bigger issue. The bigger issue is not that every school should have a whole language or a Bhojpuri language. That's not the issue. The issue is that our number of speakers of Bhojpuri and their culture should not gradually, go down and down. That's more important. It is not important that we, Shah Jahan again comes back to Taj Mahal. That's not the idea. The idea is that Taj Mahal as it is should be saved because of the culture, because of the heritage, because of many things, because it gives you many historical facts. And therefore it is important, So that's the idea, and technology allows you to do that.
Yes, Osama, I thought it was interesting and very inspiring to listen to you and see the possibilities that are open when it comes to oral languages and how they can be developed. It is optimistic, and we need some optimism in this area. But I am also concerned about the fact that the written languages, African languages, that are my biggest concern, that they are also preserved through, so this is just a comment, through the use of mobile phones. The texting on mobile phones. There's been an interesting study at the University of Dakar in Senegal where they show that the students, they all text to each other in Wolof. But the language of instruction there is French. You have a similar study at the University of Dar es Salaam showing that the students there text each other in Kiswahili. The language of instruction is English. And in Dakar, it's also been shown that the parents who are living other places, they become literate through texting in Wolof with their children. Because their children are studying in Dakar and they want to communicate with them, and texting is so cheap, and also you can it's easier to use sometimes than phoning, because phone you have to be on be there at the same time, but the text you can answer later on. So that they have really learned the written language through texting on mobile phones. So it was just a comment.
Thank you very much. That was a very good sharing from your side. One thing that I wanted to share with you is this is pure technology and also a reality. Our voice never dies because it's a wave. It is always in the air, and it can be caught by the technology hundreds and hundreds years later, depending how technology is. But if you are written, it can always perish. That doesn't mean you stop writing. Having said that, voice is natural, written is man-made. Oral chord is natural, and therefore nature, whatever it makes, it has its own value and its own science and technology. And now the current technology, which is audio-visual technology, matches with the natural technology. And therefore, it is extremely inspiring that how do you use this technology, which is interactive, captures oral, which is natural chord, and then mix and match and create content. So you don't have to be extraordinarily become literate and written because all those pictorial and written was an invention of man to communicate. That doesn't mean for thousands of years, if we are communicating in written, that becomes the last word. That becomes the only medium.
Do we have any more questions? We've got time for a couple more. There's one right at the back. Okay, one here and then one right at the back.
I'm Shavila from Sri Lanka. Now, when we think about the digital media, there are some sub-languages are created in the expressing and pronunciation and some word vocabulary also. So what do you think about the effects of these using sub-languages in relation to the main languages?
Do you want to just repeat the last bit, just the question?
When the digital media uses the languages, they use various sub-languages to express their views and the ideas. So they may be different from the main languages. Those are embedded in the main language, and sometimes it may be affected making differences in the main languages. how it affects the main language in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. In fact, that also shows the diversity, because when you say mainstream, that means it is about grammar, it is about the syntax and everything of a particular language. But there is always different ways of speaking the same language, which you call as local dialects or accent and different things. Even in Bhojpuri language that we speak, there are 3-4 kind of ways that we speak. But in written, when you do written, you can always say that this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, this is right. But in oral, it's a different dialect, it's a different culture of the same language, which is even better because technology can grab that differently, and the written technology can always question that mainstream is this and this is not. But these are expressions to basically communicate, When you are obviously reading a textbook or a dictionary or something, obviously you will always see that this is the final grammar of the language. But when you are sharing information, you don't have to be particular about the grammar or the particular mainstreaming way of a language.
That means, do you think that there's no any bad effect on the mainstream because of these oral changes?
Yeah, I don't know, if the masses are started, for example, we cannot say that emoticons that we use on SMS has no value, because there are so many people that are using it, just because culturally we are saying that no, written is very important, it is very, aristocratic and all that. You cannot discard the culture, the cultural expression of a language. So you may say that this is right and wrong, but the fact is that it is a fact of life, that this is being expressed in a different way.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question right at the back.
Good morning. My name is Tejri. I'm from Mauritius. I have a small question for you. You started your presentation by saying that there are so many endangered languages in the world. And then you went on to say that languages might be endangered, but they still have a presence on digital media. Don't you think then that this is a false dichotomy, that the UNESCO, etc., they don't factor in their indices digital presence, and that if we did so, the maps that we are working on right now, they would change? Don't you think that because we have not been factoring digital presence onto indices, onto maps that Survival International generate, that we might have been putting effort in the wrong place? That a language is not dead until it's disappeared from everywhere, including digital media, and that we could focus our efforts elsewhere? Thank you.
Okay, so number one, I didn't say that there's so many languages endangered, but they are present on the internet. No, not at all. There are many, one of 196 languages endangered in India. Many of them are not present on the internet. And even if they are present, they may not be present as a language written, but maybe language spoken, and I'm trying to give a stress that written is not the only medium we can think of saving a language or giving respect to a language or thinking that language has a power. I'm trying to give a stress that oral is, most of the endangered languages are still spoken by people, but may not be written by the people, and they are not popularly written by the high number of people. And therefore, written should be treated as a medium, and like that, oral should also be treated as a medium, and oral should not be discarded by saying that since you are only oral, you are illiterate, you are uneconomic, you are, So I'm trying to give respect, equal respect, by by oral languages, all the oral languages, with equal respect as written languages, because written languages has got too many powers in its hand just because it is written, and oral languages are not getting an equal importance, and therefore they are becoming more and more endangered, and digital media helps it, to treat it in oral and captures it. That's all I'm trying to say.
And we have time for one more question.
So, you have spoken about use of how digital media can help us save the languages. But I will not focus on language, but I want to ask something about the digital part. Meaning that we know it is important to save languages and from different parts of different societies. But my question is, are we also trying to take it for granted that digital media is available to all in all equal terms that we want to? Don't you think there is such a variability in access and its use, and a perception of different people, be it from rural to the urban, how it is used, and then it gets influenced in the way we want to use language, use technology to save language? I think it's a very important thing which I want you to probably address.
So you are right. Digital technology or the oral media-based technology is not available to everybody. But if you saw the list in all the media that is available to humanity, it is the digital technology which is the highest penetration. Even if it is not 100%, it is still the highest number of penetration. Like mobile is the highest number of penetration, and I would like to say at the same time 72% of our Indian women do not have access to mobile, which itself, although it is the highest, but still 72% of our women do not have access to mobile. That's a fact of life. But the fact is, it is a technology which is available to highest number of people, and if you really go deeper into it, you will also see that it is also available to highest number of language speaking people also. If that data is made available in some way or the other, it will always be more higher number of languages, and therefore the technology's availability to the higher number of languages is high, therefore the content production can be high, and therefore it can have an ability to create more and more content in local language. However, at the same time, there can be a special effort for endangered languages where we can use this technology to do extraordinary penetration to, get those languages saved or converted into digital medium and therefore shared in more and more people.
Thank you, Osama. I think there's been a lot of interesting points raised and discussed, and I think the last point was very pertinent as well, because I don't think that you're suggesting that this is the answer and it's happening by itself. This is part of the answer. A couple of key things that you raised for me, the way in which you said the endangered languages, most spoken in rural India, what did that mean in terms of rural India? It meant disempowered, it meant remote. And it throws up aspects of how we treat the language, and then bringing that to the death of the languages, the death of the culture and the heritage. So this is, I think, a very clear indication of how the oral society that makes up much of multicultural, multilingual India is actually managing to preserve some of those languages. But as Osama said, this is part of the solution. And I think the challenge for us as we go forward over the next day or so is, how does the oral society, the way in which the oral tradition can be maintained, fit into the discussions of policy, as our participant at the back raised, policy and ideas in taking forward in language and development in multilingual societies. So I think that we would all like to join in giving a very big round of applause for an inspiring talk to Osama Manzar. Thank you very much.
So digital media, current photo.
Thank you very much. We will now be breaking a few minutes early, and the rest of the schedule will go as planned. We're following this by, is this a break or it's a break, so time for tea. No, it's not a break, sorry, it's not a break. Oh, time to network, no time for tea.